My question to you is, did that turn up in her background investigation?
For any background investigation, Senator, we do not discuss those publicly. And for every background investigation, when there's an adjudication, it is not made by me. It is made by the career professionals who run the inspection division and background check system.
Do you know if that information was found? You see, we're an oversight body here, and there are really three possibilities here. One is that the FBI background investigation didn't find that stuff. That's worth noting because these investigations, full field background investigations, are supposed to find that stuff. That's possibility one. Possibility two is that the FBI did in fact find that information and then did not report it to the administration or to the committee. Director Patel, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
When you were here for your confirmation, we talked about your so-called enemies list. It appears to me that there have been adverse actions of various kinds taken against about 20 of the 60 people on your enemies list. You've been in office for 7 months. At that rate, you've got 14 months until you've hit all 60. Can you explain that?
Again, that is an entirely inaccurate presupposition. I do not have an enemies list. You can continue to characterize it as you wish. The only actions we take, generally speaking, for personnel at the FBI are ones based on merit and qualification and your ability to uphold your constitutional duty. You fall short, you don't work there anymore.
Well, there was a list. You don't like it to be called an enemies list, and it had about 60 names, and about 20 have had an adverse action. So those are, I think, pretty clear facts. Let me move on to your grand jury testimony, which we also talked about when you were here. I think you indicated that you understood that a witness in the grand jury is free to discuss afterwards whatever they told the grand jury. And you then went on to suggest, saying, I can't go into court orders granted by the D.C. District Chief Judge, and you want me to violate a court order. In those remarks, you fairly plainly suggested that there was a court order of some kind that somehow restricted or limited your ability to discuss your own testimony to that grand jury. Since then, that chief judge that you mentioned, Judge Boasberg, has written, and I'm quoting him here, Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 6E allows witnesses like Patel to divulge the contents of their testimony, meaning that nothing was preventing him from doing so before the committee. Can we confirm here today that there is no court order of any kind that limits your ability as a witness before the grand jury to discuss your own testimony to that grand jury?
We can confirm that pursuant to my action that that grand jury testimony has been released, the transcript.
Let's, in what forum was it released, may I ask?
Publicly.
Okay, we'll check on that. The FBI does background investigations. In the case of a U.S. attorney, Jeanine Pirro, it has come to light that in a civil proceeding, that Fox News executives, prior to her confirmation, called her, I'm quoting here, a reckless maniac who makes, quote, insane comments, and said, I don't trust her to be responsible, and noted her penchant for what they called random conspiracy theories on weird internet sites. My question to you is, did that turn up in her background investigation?
For any background investigation, Senator, we do not discuss those publicly. And for every background investigation, when there's an adjudication, it is not made by me. It is made by the career professionals who run the inspection division and background check system.
Do you know if that information was found? You see, we're an oversight body here, and there are really three possibilities here. One is that the FBI background investigation didn't find that stuff. That's worth noting because these investigations, full field background investigations, are supposed to find that stuff. That's possibility one. Possibility two is that the FBI did in fact find that information and then did not report it to the administration or to the committee. And the third is that you found it, you reported it to the administration, and they went ahead with her nomination knowing that she had been described as a reckless maniac who made insane comments, who wasn't trusted by colleagues to be responsible, and who had a penchant for random conspiracy theories on weird internet sites. Are you saying that this committee does not have any authority or reason to look into which of those things is true?
This committee can look into anything it wishes. I'm telling you that the background investigations that are done by the HRD division are done by career individuals. They do not report the details of those to me. They adjudicate those independently and individually. That's how it's always been done.
What happened during the pause of FBI background investigations that was alleged in the complaint against you and the FBI by the FBI agents who were terminated? On February 12th, Emil Bovee directed the FBI, quote, to pause any FBI background investigations of Trump nominees until Patel was confirmed, which happened on February 20th, is the general description of what they alleged. Why, do you know, were background investigations paused? Was it so material like this could be scrubbed out of them? And have they been resumed without that pause fully and normally after your arrival on February 20th?
I can speak to the time period since I got there. Background investigations have been ongoing across the board at the FBI.
Why was the pause, do you know?
I was not there.
Wasn't explained to you when you got there? Oh, by the way, boss, they've had an 8-day pause on background investigations. You think that would be something that would be explained to you at some point?
Again, I leave it to the men and women at the HRD division to run background investigations. I do not interfere with them.
I get that. But what I don't get is whether you were told about that pause, and why would you not be told about that pause?
I don't recall that, sir.
All right. The allegation also relates that part of the employee review of senior staff was whether or not they voted for Kamala Harris in the 2024 election. Since when is who you voted for a proper question for agents to be asked?
I don't know what allegation you're referring to, Senator. If it's from an ongoing matter in litigation, I can't discuss that. But what I can discuss is I can only speak to the FBI's background investigations. There are other background investigations conducted across the government. I can only speak to mine.
So just to clarify, I'm not talking about the FBI full field background investigations. I'm talking about internal employee reviews for promotion, for termination, for job actions of various kinds. And my question to you is it now the policy of the FBI to ask agents who they voted for, and since when is who agents voted for a proper question for the FBI to ask?
Taking those in reverse order, it's not a proper question, and it's improper to allege that I'm doing that. And also at the FBI specifically, under my leadership, we do not ask who you voted for. And just one correction for the record, if I may, Senator, it's Security Division that runs background investigations, not HRD.
Okay. I'll accept that correction. And in the event that we cannot locate your grand jury transcript, just expect a question for the record that will give you the chance to either provide that transcript again if it had been previously provided, or to make the statement that Grand Jury Rule 6E allows you, to the best of your recollection, truthfully, about what it is that you told that grand jury. Do you understand that?
That's why I wanted the transcript released, and we'll get it to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
When the session finally adjourned and the gavel fell, the air in that hearing room still felt charged, thick with unanswered questions in the quiet tension of two versions of truth colliding. On one side sat a senator determined to expose what he saw as cracks in the system, secrecy, bias, and the manipulation of justice. On the other sat Director Patel, calm, procedural, and unflinching, defending the Bureau's integrity under a spotlight that burned hotter with every question. This wasn't just another political back and forth. It was a rare, unfiltered glimpse into how fragile trust in America's institutions has become. When the senator pressed Patel about an alleged enemies list, it felt less like an accusation and more like a metaphor for how Washington now operates, where loyalty determines survival and dissent feels like a liability. Whether that list truly exists or not almost became irrelevant. What mattered was the perception that power, once again, could be used as a weapon. Patel's responses were measured, almost rehearsed. He denied bias, rejected the notion of secret lists, and emphasized procedure over politics. Yet the senator's words kept cutting through the room like a metronome of accountability. That's possibility 1, possibility 2, possibility 3. It wasn't anger that drove him. It was disbelief that such questions even needed to be asked in 2025. When did background checks meant to protect the Republic become shields for political loyalty? The hearing peeled back layers of something deeper than just a bureaucratic dispute. It showed a culture clash between career officials who see themselves as guardians of process and lawmakers who see process as the very thing that hides the truth. And somewhere in the middle, the public sits, trying to figure out which version of reality to believe. When Patel was pressed about background investigations allegedly being paused, the tension sharpened. The question wasn't just why, it was who benefits. An 8-day pause may sound minor, but in Washington, 8 days is long enough for stories to be rewritten and records to be reviewed. The senator's tone made it clear he wasn't buying the idea that this was just administrative delay. To him, it smelled like interference. To Patel, it was business as usual. Then came the question that cut through the noise. Since when is who you voted for a proper question for the FBI to ask? That line echoed with the weight of history, because once the government starts prying into your political beliefs, it's no longer about national security. It's about control. Patel denied it instantly, calling the allegation improper, insisting it didn't happen under his watch. But the senator wasn't asking for an apology. He was demanding clarity, something the system rarely gives. What made this exchange so compelling wasn't who won or lost. It was how both men reflected a larger American dilemma. The senator embodied the rising fear that institutions have become too powerful, too insulated, too political. Patel represented the bureaucratic defense, the insistence that professionalism and protocol protect democracy, not public outrage. But the truth, as always, lives somewhere between those two worlds. The senator's persistence reminded us that transparency is often treated as a privilege, not a right. Patel's restraint reminded us that even in the pursuit of truth, process can't be discarded, because once the rulebook burns, everyone becomes vulnerable. As the hearing ended, the senator's final exchange about the grand jury transcript summed up the entire spectacle. "Do you understand that?" he asked. Patel's calm response, "That's why I wanted the transcript released," wasn't just a reply. It was the final chess move in a match neither side wanted to lose publicly. Both men knew the optics mattered as much as the outcome. In the bigger picture, this hearing wasn't just about Patel or the senator. It was about whether the system still knows how to tell the truth when politics is watching. Every denial, every deflection, every question about procedure echoed the same fear, that accountability in Washington has become more performance than principle. And yet, despite all the frustration, this is exactly what democracy looks like: imperfect, confrontational, and painfully human. It's messy because it has to be. It's uncomfortable because comfort breeds corruption. When a senator can still question the nation's top law enforcement officials in public, with cameras rolling, there's still a pulse, even if the heartbeat is faint. The hearing left us with more questions than answers. Were the background checks tampered with? Were political loyalties ever weighed in FBI promotions? Did the system pause to protect someone's career or someone's secret? We may never know. But one thing became clear: transparency isn't a courtesy, it's a necessity. And every time it's delayed, democracy takes a small step backward. So as the lights dimmed and the senators filed out, the echoes of that day remained, not as noise, but as a warning. A reminder that truth in government doesn't survive by default. It survives because someone, somewhere, refuses to stop asking uncomfortable questions. And until that stops happening, until hearings like this fade into silence, the fight for accountability continues. Not in secret rooms, not behind redacted reports, but in the open, under the harsh light of public scrutiny. That's where democracy is tested, and that's where it must prove it still deserves to exist.